Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's session, High Quality Localization Meets Data-Driven Efficiency. We're so glad you were all able to take some time out of your day to join us. While folks are still logging on, a few quick reminders. Questions are 100% welcome, and you can type them into the control panel, and Tara and Darren will be taking questions at the end. Today's session is also being recorded and will be shared in the days ahead. Okay, without further ado, I'd like to pass it over to Darren and Tara for introductions.
Thanks, Kim. Hi, Tara. Good to see you.
Good to see you, Darren. Thanks for having me.
Oh, it's going to be fun. Let's start out with a quick introduction.
For sure. Hi, everyone. My name is Tara Yukawa. I sit in Austin, Texas, and I am the Vice President of Marketing Solutions for One Affinity.
Excellent. Give everybody a little bit of background on One Affinity. What do you guys do, and who do you do it for?
For sure. So One Affinity is a through-channel marketing company, and for those of you who may not be familiar with what through-channel marketing is, I'll give you sort of a quick introduction. So if you'll think about, and for the purposes of today, I'm going to stay focused on the IT space. That's primarily the industry that we serve, but we also have a presence in finance and insurance and other industries as well. But like I said, for today, I'll stay focused on IT. So if you will think of us, all of us as consumers, when we are purchasing a laptop or software or whatever for ourselves, we're primarily doing so through online channels or potentially through a big box store. But let's think about us as potentially small, medium business owners. A lot of times we may not have the need for full-time IT support on staff, so we'll outsource that to a trusted IT partner. And those IT partners or resellers have relationships with many of the big hardware software companies. I think we all kind of know who they are. And when we think about those IT resellers, they've got these existing relationships, but they're typically small businesses themselves. And so they typically do not have a central marketing function. And so the big IT hardware software companies of the world have recognized that. And that's where One Affinity comes in. So our clients are those big IT hardware software companies, and we help provide marketing services through the resellers to help their individual businesses, as well as to help sell the products of our clients. And for the sake of this conversation, Darren, I'm going to let you be a little bit of my guinea pig. So let's think of a pretend IT reseller business. We're going to call it Darren's IT. And Darren, when you onboard with One Affinity, you share your customer and prospect list with us. And we are able to deliver via email, social, and paid channels thought leadership content that is truly brand agnostic, as well as sharing latest product promotions and things like that. So if for your customers and prospects, Darren, let's think about they get an email in their inbox every month that looks and feels like it's branded Darren's IT. And it is filled with thought leadership content, like I said, that's truly brand agnostic. So the end user is getting a ton of value, as well as latest product promotions. And so that helps you, Darren, as an IT reseller, stay in front of your clients and make sure that they've got you top of mind every month. And we're able to do this through, like I said, email, social, and paid channels. And so what we're able to deliver back to our clients is a full view. So we're able to deliver, okay, Darren's IT and all of the resellers on the program, this is the engagement that they got in the campaigns. And there's a lead generation component to all of our campaigns as well. So we're able to also deliver pipeline. And Darren, for Darren's IT and all the other IT resellers of the world, able to highlight those opportunities. And when you close sales at the end of it, you report that back to us. So we're able to report to our clients campaign engagement, true pipeline, and return on investment. And typically for programs that are with us for 12 months or more, we typically see a 20-to-1 ROI.
Nice, nice. Well, I maybe should have started Darren's IT, but My career path's been slightly different. I'll do a quick intro. Thanks, Tara. That really sets the stage for our listeners in terms of who One Affinity is and how localization plays into what you all work on. I'm based in Portland, Oregon. I lead our solutions organization worldwide at WeLocalize. WeLocalize, for those of you on the call that aren't aware of us, we're just celebrating our 25th anniversary. It's been quite a journey. We're one of 5 super agencies, localization super agencies out there, according to industry thought leaders, Slater. And we provide really the full service content lifecycle for our customers, from legal to digital marketing, traditional localization services, and AI. So with those introductions, let's get right into it. I think, today we're really focused on hopefully getting a lot of interesting questions at the end of our session here. We're going to touch on how to build the right tech stack and support high volume, high quality multilingual marketing, the importance of the tech partnership, especially in 2022 with all of the automations and connectors that come into play through the content channels. And then really, where do we go from here? How do we leverage performance data and the data that our systems are providing both of our organizations to bring further benefit to your end customers? So those are the topics for today. And getting right into it, I think you may have touched on some of this, Tara, but there's some interesting news here. You want to kind of pick up where we left off on One Affinity and Incentive Solutions?
Yeah, absolutely. So for the purposes of the conversation today, One Affinity is a global company. And so we want to make sure that we can not only deliver our content, as I described earlier, to our resellers and end users, but we've got to be able to do it at scale. So One Affinity delivers our campaigns to more than 3 million end users every month and 4,000 resellers globally. So as I described earlier with the marketing solutions that we provide, we have also merged with Incentive Solutions. So Incentive Solutions enables us to not only, as I said, deliver these through channel marketing programs, but also incentive programs as well. So the large IT hardware software companies are able to deliver incentive programs to their resellers in order to help promote the sales of their products.
Awesome. When did localization start for One Affinity? How did it start?
Yeah, so it started about 2 years ago. We had a customer come to us and said, "We love you guys. You delivered a ton of value and really great quality, but we need to do more than just English-speaking markets." So at the time, we were in the UK, North America, Australia, New Zealand, and we were only delivering in English. And they said, "But can you deliver in Quebec?" We said, "Yeah, we think so. Let's see if we can pull this off." So we created a process where we were leveraging really a friendly business that was doing translation, and we were doing all of our translation via email. So I'm sure many of you guys understand the pain of that, of going back and forth in an email, trying to create these translations, do it at scale, make sure that you deliver all of the processes and try to create efficiencies, but it's challenging.
Yep. And that led you guys to an RFP about a year ago. And
Yeah.
what were some of the drivers? Well, I mean, the drivers were what you just described, but what were some of the components and attributes that went into making this selection of your vendor?
Yeah, there were a couple of key things that we needed. So the pain points that we were having is we were stuck in this email back and forth, and it was super time consuming, and it was taking us on average 34 days to get from content creation through all of the editorial process and translation, then to be able to deliver our campaigns. And quite frankly, that was just too long. We needed to be able to deliver full campaigns in the same month that we were delivering the English campaigns, and we needed to create efficiencies. It was extremely taxing on my team to be able to try to get all of this done in addition to all of the English campaigns that were needed. So we had this vision, and to be honest, we didn't know if it was possible, but we wanted to be able to have a content library that could house all of our content. when it was ready to go to translation, we could hit send to translation and it would come back into our systems. And the other piece is that we don't have people on staff that speak all the various different languages, right? And so we needed to reduce the risk of non-native speakers touching the content after it came back from the translators. Because what we found is we were making mistakes. We were trying to do copy paste and headlines were becoming first sentences, and it just introduced a lot of room for error. So we needed to completely eliminate that.
Yeah. Well, you mentioned your team. Real quick, how big is One Affinity, and how many folks, either in your org or across your company, are associated in one way or another with localization? Maybe content writers, project managers, but how big is One Affinity, and how big are the folks that are involved in localization?
Yeah, so One Affinity is about 300 employees, and we have 20 or so that are actively involved in content creation and translation each month.
Got it. Got it. Excellent. So let's frame the problem a little bit. I mean, you've touched on some of these, but how about if you hit the problem side and a little bit of the solutions, and I'll add some context from there.
Sounds great. So one of the challenges that we had is that we have Partner Reach, which is our proprietary technology, and it was created for the purposes of delivering these campaigns in English only. And so we needed to do some work on our end to make sure that that we were able to deliver in multiple languages, but we wanted to have a content management system that we could truly create as a library that enabled us to have all of the various localization and translated versions and house it in a way that that made sense,
Yeah.
and leverage taxonomy and things like that. And then we also wanted to have a workflow that was built in. Obviously, I mentioned 20 or so people. We have people that are writing briefs, writing the content. There's an editorial step, there's a design step, there's a translation step. So there's lots of different teams that are having to touch each piece of content. And we really needed to streamline that for efficiencies. And then, as I mentioned earlier, reduce that risk of English speakers touching non-English content.
Yeah. And so I think where we landed collectively was what we would call a best-in-class tech stack overhaul. We are fully integrated, and we'll see that in coming slide here. And the process has really been streamlined. So how we localize approaches these things, especially in the modern era of APIs and everything, we've taken a position on tech as it relates to translation management systems, which are key and core to what we're doing together, right? And we could build, and we had previously spent a lot of money over the years. We acquired a technology called GlobalSight. It became end of life in the sense that it just wasn't a platform that was going to be able to be modernized in the way we needed. And so we took a step back and said, look, we want to put our development focus on creating a platform, a service delivery platform we call Pantheon, which creates a great deal of discrete and granular data on who's doing what and when and why and dispatches. All that stuff is sort of allowing us to feed AI engines to help us do decision support. We'll talk about that in just a minute. But where we landed after our own RFI and RFP in terms of TMSs was the company MemSource and the company XTM. Both of those we feel are highly scalable, highly extensible modern TMS systems. So one might say, well, in this case with One Affinity, we're using MemSource, and a lot of customers are like, well, why do you choose one over the other? And we work with many other systems out there, SmartLink, and TransFX, and you name it, World Server, we're using it. But left to our own devices, those are the two platforms that we see providing the most value for our customers in our tech stack. And with the case of your organization and having Content Stack be that primary repository, if you will, we look to which available connectors are out there to best support what we're trying to accomplish. At the end of the day, the TMSs all kind of have the same sort of work surfaces, are all meant to do the same sort of thing. So we kind of get in under the hood like we did with you guys and figured out what's going to be the best at play here. And speaking to that next slide, this is an interesting one, right? You have all kinds of tech upstream of localization feeding into Brandfolder. Do you want to kind of touch on some of those and what they're doing?
Yeah, for sure. So much like you, we did not want to go reinvent the wheel. We wanted to find best-in-class technology that could fully integrate with our existing partner reach system. So Brandfolder is our digital asset management tool. Content Stack is our content library. And all of that is fully integrated with MemSource, and we localize in order to deliver our translation and localization. And then that all feeds into Partner Reach, which builds all of our campaigns and distributes them via Campaign Monitor. Alchemer is our tool for all of our surveys and forms, and that's what enables us to deliver all of our campaigns.
Yeah, and I know we stood up a Drupal connector early on. I think it's still live and a little bit of content flowing through there. But those other content systems are all kind of getting wound down into Content Stack being your primary repository. And that connector that we have supplied by MemSource that takes that content, routes it into our MemSource TMS. The tech doesn't just stop there, because once that content is in MemSource, the system I described earlier, our enterprise platform, our service delivery platform called Pantheon, is pulling MemSource, every 2 minutes and pulling projects directly into this structured workflow where we have all of the right translators that have been trained and skilled for your content, and our project managers on your program, and also the workflow steps that we have. Is it a transcreation workflow, a translation workflow? All of that's codified, so project managers get to manage the exceptions instead of the day-to-day assignments of everything. So that all automatically gets dispatched directly to the workers, and we don't even touch it. It's moving through.
It's great. And not to get too techie on you, but for many of you that may have a content management system, you typically have a master version and English and the various localized versions. We have that in Content Stack as well. But the beautiful thing is that once it's done in English, just as I described earlier, it's like our wish when we were doing the RFP, we hit send to translation, it goes through MemSource, we localize, those translators do all of the work, and it comes back into Content Stack, creates the new version, the localized version, and all of it's in there with, we have dozens of fields and all of it lines up. So none of our English speaking employees ever have to touch it again, which was a huge piece of reducing that risk of error.
Yeah, and look, it's not all silver bullet and pull a lever and it's magic. I mean, I remember a couple of things that surfaced when we were first standing up this tech stack, and one of them was, you guys were sending links via Content Stack content, but it was actually pointing to documents over in Brandfolder, and that came to us via an HTML link, right? Well, the connector wasn't surfacing that to us, and we weren't able to pull that content. And so again, having good partners, XTM's a great partner, MemSource is a great partner. We just circled quickly with the tech team over at MemSource and got in to scope what needed to be done, and they agreed that they would make some changes to how the connector operated. And what was it? I think within 7 or 8 days, they had moved through the development and QA'd that patch, and we were up and running in 10 days with that feature. We appreciate that kind of the 3-way collaboration that it took, because your Content Stack experts had to be at the table with us to make sure that you got what you needed there. And another one was, I think it was the use of essentially we were getting empty array objects because you were using markdown fields, but you are actually putting marked up HTML content in it. And that's okay. The connector worked as designed, but then as we kind of all work together with MemSource to say, hey, can this be supported? Same story. Within 10 days, another patch had been released. And I think it's important for people to know that things will not always work perfectly out of the box, and you want to select partners that are going to get in and scrum, and select partners in tech that are going to be there to solve those problems with you. So
and that's a good call out, Darren, because we're not a Fortune 500 company.
Right.
And having partners like Content Stack and We Localize and MemSource to help us create this vision, and having that good partnership and close collaboration was mission critical in order for us to deliver what we're able to deliver today.
Yeah, and we oftentimes will get, comments and inquiry from customers of your size. I mean, we Localize is, as I said, one of the top 5 loc providers in the U.S. and many of our customers do have programs where we're producing millions of words a month, and thousands upon thousands of projects a month. And how can we give that same? So we've learned a lot from those engagements, which help us bring that same level of expertise to a customer of your size, because we're planning on seeing you guys grow quite a bit, and I'm sure your C-suite has the same desire. So let's move forward with kind of like where this has landed in a few places. These just some really interesting stats here.
Yeah, so you heard me mention before, when we were originally trying to do this like a real scrappy way through email and everything, it was taking 34 days beginning to end. So now we're able to get to market 55% faster. We're able to improve our SLAs by 53%, and we've reduced our number of errors to almost 0. So huge efficiencies within our internal team. We're able to deliver our content within the same month in about 16 days, and we've reduced that error.
Yeah, I mean, for those that have been around in the industry for a while, and that includes me, you just don't often see that data point of number of errors reduced to almost 0. So it does go to show, when the right tech and the right processes are put in place, the right people are doing the right things, you're gonna see a reduction in errors. So that's an interesting one. Hey, so how involved are your customers in terms of what kind of KPIs and OKRs we have those between our organizations, but what do they look like to your end customer, and how does that data work?
Yeah, so as I mentioned before, most of our clients are like the big hardware software companies, and some of them have a presence in these various markets and some don't. And because of the trusted relationship that we have with We Localize and the quality that you've been able to deliver time and time again, for those companies that don't necessarily have that presence or that expertise in the local market or language, they're able to be completely hands off. And likewise, for our clients that do have that presence, we're able to let them be part of the review process and to provide feedback. And I'll tell you, we have an incredible relationship with our resellers. If something is wrong, we find out about it real quick. And since we have developed this relationship, and our translation processes have matured over time, we see almost no negative feedback on the quality of the translation.
Yeah, and so you're hosting most of this content. I think in some cases you have some use cases that are coming online where you're actually just providing the content over to said end customer. Is that right?
Yeah, that's right. So, in some cases through our campaigns, we're able to host all that, but our content team is really, really incredible. They create great thought leadership, award-winning, might I add. And in some cases, our clients come to us in order to create content that they can leverage, or that their resellers can leverage. And so we're able to hand that over to them. And if it needs translation, then we're able to do that through our relationship as well.
So you can control the data around engagement. You're going to see that. Those are your metrics. And then pipeline or lead generation, but then you ultimately get that closed business. How impactful has your campaign been via VAR reports from your resellers, and they're reporting on that. Do I have that right?
Yeah, no, you're exactly right. So it's really interesting, right? The engagement in all of our local markets has been incredible. And in some cases, it performs better than the English speaking versions.
Yeah, let's take a look at that. I think there was one call out where that surfaced for you recently.
Yeah, exactly. So if you'll take a peek at the one in the middle in green, we literally saw double the engagement in the localized market. And that really ties to the importance of not just straight translation, but transcreation. So there's things that, you know, we would write in the United States that, you know, that wouldn't sit well, or we would want to word it slightly differently in order for it to make sense with the local market. And on the We Localize team, like I said, it's not just straight translation, it's transcreation. And they're making sure that our messages sit just right with the local market.
Yeah, that tees up kind of the next slide, and really our last slide, and we'll spend some time on this. And it really, you know, it begs the question, where do we go from here, right? So we have tech in place that's serving needs. We have teams aligned and trained, and our processes and our workflows are good. You know, the thing that we've been thinking about, and as We Localize looks into the future, we're focused on a lot of different things, but I thought two of them worth calling out here today. The one on the left, utilizing the data that we have available to us through the concepts of AI and what we do with machine learning and AI to create decision support. And the other aspect, and you were kind of touching on this, and we'll dig into it a little bit more, is content performance. Starting with content performance, you know, historically in this industry, it's all been about, you know, the quality of the language, and that was the measurement. What was a DQF score, or what was the LQA score for this language? Looking at that week by week, month by month. And you know, that's a metric that's been important and been around for a long, long time. Does it really tell the whole story, right? I think we're seeing, and we would like to see more of it, a pivot to, instead of, you know, what's the language score for German this month? Oh, it slipped 3 points. Move the needle on that. And it's like, I'd rather have a quality escalation, which is saying, you know, our click-through rates on these German pages have dropped by X over the last month. Now we have something to dig into. Language quality may have been a part of it, but there's so much more to it than that. So that, I mean, looking at the return on investment of the localization spend, it was historically shown upstream in organizations like yours. Well, our ROI is great because our quality is great. No, your ROI is great is when your content is performing well, right? So on the content performance side, you know, we want to rank that impact, and we want to look at things like, you know, how much time on page are we seeing? What's the bounce rate, the click-through rate, those kinds of things. And we can do that when we have access to our customers' Google Analytics or other analytics platforms. You guys have that. So one of the things I think we've been talking about kind of evolving is our OKRs and our metrics around that, giving you the opportunity to cycle that back to your end customer, showing them that, hey, your dollars went to the right cause in the right way and have moved the needle on your business. And, you know, in doing that, you can zero in on the outlier content, right? You can see what's performing well, and you can do more of that. You can see what's performing poorly, and you can take corrections on that. And in some cases, that is language quality, but not always. And again, you do that analysis, and we like to see our customers thinking in those terms. A/B testing comes into play. Are you guys doing that now, and or planning to do that?
Yeah, we are doing that now, and you know, it is manual, and there are lots of nuances and opportunities for us to improve and enhance that, and we're looking forward to doing some of that with you as our, you know, relationship continues.
Yeah. I've seen it said that, like, well, you know, if you do transcreation right on a piece of high value marketing content or taglines or whatever, then, you know, we should spend money on that and do it once, right? But a lot of organizations are doing 2, 3 versions of that, and they're serving that up. Each page engagement is getting served up. They've got the data to see what's performing, and that really allows the feedback loop of the linguists, the transcreators in this case, to work with your content writers. I think if I'm remembering right, we had a little discussion on that, and I think you had brought to the table this notion of that feedback loop being helpful.
Yeah, no, definitely. So, you know, like I said, we create a lot of our content in English speaking markets. And in some cases, there are opportunities where we can partner with We Localize and the translation experts on their side to be able to help inform the content that we write about. Or if there are areas of a certain article that maybe could sit better with a local market with some additional input. And so that collaboration of how we leverage that input in order to help drive our content strategy has been super helpful.
Yeah, it's interesting. And that back to that A/B testing kind of piece there. It's sort of like, well, why should we pay for 3 versions of something? We just need one version of it that's good, right? But everybody relates to content differently, and we know that there's so much subjectivity in language. I mean, if you take the model of saying 1,000 page views cost $10 to create as just a data point, and you're getting a 1% click through on that, your cost per visit for the advertiser is $1, right? But if you're able to take that, sort of apply that same same cost structure out to a better performing trans-created ad with a 2 or 3% click-through rate, you're down 50 cents and below. Now those numbers at scale more than make up for the added cost of like, well, we translated that twice, or we trans-created that 2 or 3 times. So you just got to think in those lines. And so that's a big focus, and I think one where we've been talking about where do we go from here in our partnership. I want to touch a little bit on the left side there with the decision support through AI. I mean, ultimately, we've been piloting for a variety of our customers this concept of source suitability, or finding content that's at risk. And what that does for us, the AI engines, and I'm not going to deep dive on this, we've done other webinars on this topic, but they essentially are scanning content for complexity, long sentence structure, overuse of acronyms, noun clusters, adjectives, strings, all the things that can inform us and our systems to know that that content may need a special touch. And in some cases, that special touch, maybe we're not going to execute the transcreation or translation until the source is improved. And that can be an automatic trigger back to your content authors with flags of like, this is where it's going to be challenging for a trans creator. Or you can route to one or more workflows, and be that MT, transcreation, human translation, whatever, high touch, low touch we have there. And then you can also alert the downstream folks that are going to do the QA work on that. Where are the risky spots here? So you're doing 10,000 word project, and we want to draw attention to, 100, 200 words here, here, and here. Then they get, extra time with that content to make sure it's right. So that's kind of one aspect, but then that also feeds into really the ability to start spending smart. And, historically, as your volumes grow for translation, and if you take that same methodology and have the same workflow of like, everything is going to go through, a copy editor, and then it's going to go to a language quality expert to do another review. It makes sense to do that on some content, but it doesn't make sense to do it on all of it. So we've been piloting this notion of predictive MLQA, which again focuses on those problem segments, and in some cases it just allows us to focus on the outliers. So we're seeing some customers who are reducing their QA spend, completely not impacting or actually improving quality, because you're getting the right eyes in the right places and spending those extra quality dollars there. And so these are kind of the things as we kind of land our conversation today, where We Localize is heading, and where we've been talking about taking your program as well as we further evolve.
Well, and we're looking forward to that too. And really through our relationship, the other thing too is our content writers have been able to change their mindset where it's less local specific and more internationally focused, right? And so we're able to create more international focused content, and then knowing that we have the opportunity and working with We Localize to localize that more specifically so that it's market appropriate.
That's good.
And so continuing to have this sort of data is only going to improve that ability.
I think you're right. I think you're right. So with that, let's move it over to Q&A and bring Kim in. I'm going to stop sharing my screen, and hopefully now we're on screen and everybody can see us, and we can kind of jump in on some questions.
Thanks both. That was a great discussion and a lot of thoughtful information, and there are some questions. So let's just dive in. Okay, so the first one is for Tara. How much content do you create annually, and how do you scale a high volume of content, translate, and get in market?
Yeah, so that's a great question. So, One Affinity creates on average about 5,000 pieces of content every month, or excuse me, every year. And so with that high volume, making sure that we've got, a really tight process in order to go through, obviously, content creation through to translation.
Yeah.
What was the last part of that question? I don't know if I fully answered it.
Scale, how do you scale?
Yeah, so with partners like We Localize.
Yeah, I'll just jump in on that and say that, the systems that I described earlier that we've been developing, one of the key attributes there is our ability to look at our labor force of linguists that are skilled for certain customers' content and content types by language, by region. And it's really, the equation is how much visibility do we have on the pipeline? And so One Affinity is able to tell us when a particular week or a particular month looks like it's going to be heavy. And we have that data available to us to know that, because many of these translators are working on a variety of different programs. Hey, do we have the capacity? And we've yet to strike any sort of concerns on capacity there. We can scale up in a variety of ways through, the over 3,000 translators that we have active at any given time. So that's been working for us.
And Darren, you bring up a really good point, because not only does We Localize help us with all of our monthly campaigns, but whenever we go into a new market, we have to make sure that all of our systems are fully translated too, right? Because end users and our resellers have interactions with our Partner Reach tool. And I want to say it's like 25,000 words whenever we go into to a new market, and having the expertise of not just marketing translators or trans creators, we also need to think about, okay, well, how do we have the submit button, and how do we give instructions on clicking on different things in the various languages? And you guys have that expertise.
Yeah, and able to do that at 5x and 10x for some customers. So it's been part of that 25-year journey to build that out. You mentioned the volumes that you have, and I was looking at some data yesterday in our systems. On average for you guys, we're doing between 500 and 700 discrete tasks each month in terms of workflow steps. So again, that granular data, it's interesting to look at where that time goes and how that spend happens. What other questions do we have, Kim?
One for you, Darren. Now, don't get too techie on this one, okay? So
that will be easy. That will be easy for me.
All right. On average, how long does it take to set up a CMS TMS connector?
That is a good question, and we do get asked that a lot. And I used to hyperventilate on that question a little bit because some of those actions are outside of our direct control. Having said that, and also many of the connectors previously had to be custom developed, right? Either internally by our teams or via API with our customers' tech teams. The short answer to this, and it's not a technical one, is usually we can see both with our MemSource and XTM partnerships, they're available out-of-box connectors can be configured within the matter of a couple of days. And then we start to see content, test content flowing through. To play it safe, I usually like to tell folks, let's spend 2 weeks on this. Let's spend 2 weeks and get it right. Now, we may surface, like I mentioned earlier, if we want to call it a deficiency, that's fine. It's more like a configuration requirement that would surface, right? Like the two that I mentioned earlier, those are going to take a little bit more time, but you want to surface them, and they can usually be surfaced in the first week or two. A lot of times we have our customers up and running in 2 weeks with these connectors. There are cases where it's also been 2 days. I don't want to set the bar that low.
Next question. You mentioned transcreation. Are you working on that with all your content, and is it a different service than translation localization for We Localize?
I think either one of us could take that, Tara, but I'll jump in really quick, and then you help round out the answer. Transcreation, translation, the differentiations between those two have been long forming. Transcreation can mean a lot of different things to different individuals. We test our translators on their ability to work in that mode, that modality, that framework. And really what it means for us is a translator using our transcreation workflow is going to have the ability to take more liberties to create content that really, really speaks to not just their language, but maybe their country, maybe their city or their province. It's like we spend time understanding the brand, style, tone, what we're looking to accomplish, and then we give those translators a longer leash to change content in a way, change metaphors, change any aspects of that content that is going to make it really feel more regional. So that's what we do. Now the question of how often do you guys use translation or transcreation? I'll let Tara take that one over.
Yeah, I would say the majority of what we do is transcreation, because we're talking about marketing here and thought leadership content. By and large, the majority of it is transcreation. As far as translation goes, and Darren, you may be able to add a little bit more detail here. I would say we typically are using more of a translation service when we're talking about translating our systems and giving our users instructions on how to use our tools.
Yep, that's completely accurate.
Another question, and I know Darren, you just mentioned some data, but I'm not sure if it covered this one. The 16-day turnaround for your monthly translations, Tara, that's awesome. How much content on average is part of that turnaround?
So it's about 20% of what we do. So you do that math, but it's a dozens, less than 100, but definitely
in terms of content pieces
per month.
Yeah.
Great. Another one for Tara. How do you stay aligned with your LSP to ensure you are delivering to your LSAs?
And I don't know what LSA means.
Yeah.
SLA?
SLA.
The SLA?
Yeah.
Okay. It's interesting, right? So when we very first started the relationship with We Localize and the team, trying to figure out not only are we meeting the SLAs that we've agreed to? How are we tracking things through? There's lots of different people that are responsible for various programs and campaigns, so they need to know where everything is at all times. And we started doing it in a spreadsheet, and it was like a shared Google Doc, and it was challenging. We would have areas where we stumbled and things like that, and we had internally we were using a project management tool called Asana, and that was really helping us internally. So we went to We Localize and we said, please, would you guys be willing to work in Asana with us? So we think that we can create some additional efficiencies and give everybody full visibility of where everything is at all times. And We Localize was 100% on board. So We Localize is in our Asana instance, and that's how we're tracking all of our content, and it has been a huge improvement.
Yeah, and to elaborate on that, on the data side, again, the reason we built our service delivery platform in many respects was to be able to harness data, which allows us to be forward forward looking rather than that provincial rear view mirror of we produced X, we had a quality score of Y, we delivered this on time. And in doing that, we're tracking, and our project manager are tracking on a daily basis for any of our customers at the millions of words a month to the tens of thousands of words a month programs, the time it takes for us to receive a project and quote a project if a quote's required, right? Or dispatch that project, elapsed time between each individual translators in the workflow when they picked up that task. And then from the time they started that task to when they completed that task. All of this stuff allows us to not have to chase team members, both internal, we localize team members and external team members. It's like, oh yeah, no, that was picked up within 5 minutes. And it's a 24-hour turnaround or whatever, we're good. But we may also see things like, you know, translator hasn't picked it up yet, and then now there's just one engagement point for the project manager to check in. A lot of our longstanding beliefs that we were only going to meet our on-time delivery if you're doing a 40 language project and, you know, 5 of those linguists aren't picking it up until half the time is elapsed, half the time that they have to do that project. We thought that was going to be indicative of quality, performance, and on-time delivery. And a lot of times what we really just learned as we dug in on that is translators are busy, they have a lot going on, they block their time for different reasons. Some of our best translators, most high performing in terms of quality and on-time delivery, actually weren't the first to pick it up. They were the ones that were over in nervous land, time-wise speaking, when they picked it up. So that data is really helpful for us, and having that data allows us to ensure our SLAs are met with our customers like OneAffinity. Any other questions, Kim? These have been good ones.
I know, those were great questions. That was the last question. So I think with that, if either one of you want to give any closing thoughts, and we can wrap it up.
I would like to just simply say, if anybody today has any interest in engaging on some of these topics, to please reach out, especially sort of the content around decision support, what we're doing with some of those pilots, as well as our approach to content performance and management over on kind of that digital marketing side. Please reach out. I personally can get involved in that, but we're a big company and there's people that are experts in those areas far beyond me. So we'll get you in touch with the right folks. Tara, any follow-up for you?
Just to echo what you said, if anybody is interested in a through channel marketing program, then definitely reach out to me. Happy to talk through it, but also happy to talk through, you know, the entire process of what we went through to get from where we were, which was delivering basically English only, to now what we're able to deliver, you know, from a global experience. I'm happy to talk through, you know, what our tech stack looks like and the various challenges that we had. So feel free to reach out to me on LinkedIn.
Excellent. Enjoy
Thank
talking
you
with you
both.
today, Tara.
Thanks, Darren. I appreciate it. Bye, Kim.
Bye-bye.